given us. God, I thank you as always for the leaders that are with us today and the incredible kingdom work that is represented on this call today. God, we just continue to commit 2025 to you. We pray that you would lead us and guide us. Give us the courage we need to take the steps that you want us to take in 2025. God, speak through Andrew today. Help us to just catch something that's going to help us move to the next level. We're all in different places. So, God, I just pray that you would speak to each and every person here personally. And again, show us what you have for us today. Thank you for this time, and we commit it to you in Jesus' name. Amen. Andrew, take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jonathan. So great to be here with you all who are here live and those who may be listening to this recording later on. Really excited to be running through some of the information we're going to go through here today. And what I wanted this to be is data is not always like the most exciting thing for everybody. So this is going to be a little more of an interactive type session. So we're going to have you all involved. There'll be some opportunities to do some polling and different things. So want to let you know that that's going to be a piece of this as well. We'll make it fun. We'll make it entertaining as we go through this. And what I wanted to kind of start out here with, we're just some trends that we're seeing nationally. So a little bit just about our organization real quick is Kingdom Analytics. We've been around for, man, 7 or 8 years now, but really with the goal of bringing Fortune 500 level data down to local nonprofits, ministries, churches, things like that. So what I always say is a little scary is that we've got thousands of data points on every household in America, but our heart and the goal here is how do we use this for good and to grow the kingdom? And what you'll see later on are some really unique ways that we can use data for good. And we work with organizations across the country, and in doing so, have kind of identified, hey, here are 10 trends that we're kind of seeing right now nationally. And what I want you all to be kind of thinking of as we go through this, and we'll do a poll after we go through these 10, is what's the one that really stands out or resonates most with you? So kind of remember and be thinking in the back of your head, what's that one for you and your ministry? So let me go ahead and jump in here. So the first trend that we're seeing is essentially a decline in individual donors. The percentage of U.S. households contributing to charity has decreased from approximately 66% about 25 years ago to just below 50% in 2024. And this has been a pretty steady and predictable decline. So not to be the bearer of bad news, but we could probably anticipate this trend to continue. So that's number one. Number two, on the brighter side, is the rise of donor advised funds, or DAFs. If you're not familiar with what a donor advised fund is, essentially it's I think at least an awesome tool that allows your donors to essentially contribute assets, whether that's cash, stock, whatever it is, into a fund that they manage, and those funds can be invested and grow over time, and then can be distributed to nonprofits as they choose. So there's a lot of really great tax benefits with this, especially if you have appreciated assets, to where it's you're essentially not having to pay capital gains tax because you're donating those assets, and then they can be distributed. So we're saving from not giving to Uncle Sam, and what that allows for is an extra maybe 10 or 20% that can be given to ministries, which is great. So what we see is a rise in the utilization of donor advised funds. There's not surprisingly, maybe a preference for online giving. Significant majority of donors, 63%, in fact, prefer to donate online using credit or debit cards, highlighting the importance of user-friendly digital donation platforms. And really taking the friction out of giving has become really important. Growth in monthly giving programs. Revenue from monthly giving increased by 11% in 2022, accounting for 28% of all online donations. And we're just now getting some of the 2024 numbers as well, and you're seeing a similar increase. So this is growing to, I think it's above 30% or so now. Similar to what we talked about with some of the online giving is the emphasis on mobile-friendly donations and ensuring that your site's mobile optimized and again having those seamless transaction kind of experiences there where a lot more giving is happening on phones. Value aligned giving, donors are increasingly supporting organizations that reflect their personal values and identity, leading to more engaged and frequent contributions, which shouldn't be a huge surprise, but it is something that we are seeing. And then, similar to what we saw with some of the online giving, on the flip side of that, you're seeing a decline in cash donations. Traditional cash donations have decreased. And what like we talked about previously with some of the donor advised fund side of things, it makes a whole lot more sense to give out of pre-tax dollars and appreciated assets versus cash that you've already been taxed on. So you're seeing as that becomes more accessible to more and more donors of different income levels, you're seeing that come online a lot quicker as well. Trust-based philanthropy, growing movement towards trust-based philanthropy, where funders provide unrestricted multi-year funding to minimize administrative burdens and empower nonprofit leaders. We're going to talk more about this, but there's very specific groups and types of individuals who love to give to this type of cause and supporting some of the administrative side and different things like that there. And we're going to be speaking a lot on this today, but the increased use of AI and nonprofits are leveraging AI for predictive analytics, donor retention strategies, some communication aspects we're going to be talking about, fraud detection, and many other things. So if that interests you, we're going to dive really deep into how we can utilize some of that in our organizations as well. And a new focus on donor acquisition strategies. And so in response to what we saw in that first trend, the decline of the individual donors, a lot of nonprofits are intensifying efforts to attract new supporters through innovative campaigns and strategic partnerships. And we're going to talk specifically about some of those case studies and ideas that we can implement in our organizations as well. So those are just some initial trends to get us thinking as we start here. But as I mentioned, really want to get your guys' feedback on what's the one that's really standing out to you out of these 10. And we can do this through a poll. So if you have your phones ready, scan this QR code here, and I'll leave this up here for a minute. And then I'm going to launch this into a quick poll, and you'll be able to select which of these kind of resonates with you the most. So I'll give us just a second here, and then I'll switch over and we will see where we end up. So let's open it up. So again, if you forget, it should be on your phone now, those 10 topics we talked about. If you still need to scan it, it should be in the top right. Your video might be covering it up depending on how you have that. So it looks like the donor advised fund was a big one, monthly giving, and the decline in individual donors. Trust-based philanthropy, AI. So it looks like we're getting some good representation across the board here. So we're going to be touching on all these elements as we go through this, but it's always helpful to kind of see where everyone falls. So quite a bit on the decline in the individual, but the rise of the DAFs. That's great. Okay, let's move along. So what I really want to camp out and spend a good bit of time with us today is really on the psychology of giving. And especially when we're talking about psychology, the data behind it and the individuals behind it. And then also how we can use AI to even take things to another level from that. So to start us off, have a special guest here who's going to do a little intro for us.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. My name is Charlotte, and I am an AI avatar, custom trained to embody the personality and preferences of your organization's top donor Mosaic persona. I'm here to share insights and strategies tailored specifically for you, the dedicated nonprofit leaders of Arizona. My training is based on extensive research and data from your own communities, ensuring that the advice and information I provide are both relevant and actionable. As a representation of your top donor personas, I'm designed to help you understand their needs, preferences, and aspirations more deeply. Together, we will explore innovative ways to connect with prospective donors, enhance their donor experience, and ultimately grow and sustain our school communities. Throughout this talk, I'll be your guide, sharing valuable data, insights, and best practices that can help you refine your development strategies. I'm excited to engage with you, answer your questions, and provide support as you navigate the complexities of school fundraising. Thank you for having me here, and let's make this a productive and inspiring session. I will now turn it over to my colleague Andrew Esparza, who happens to be my creator and the founder of the company Kingdom Analytics. Take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, Charlotte. We'll hear more from her as we go through this. But want to start first from kind of the traditional way that we're all used to. When we're talking about the psychology of giving, we're all probably used to having some CRMs or different things where we're doing some initial segmentation of our donors. Maybe we're trying to understand how frequently they're giving and who they might be. And this is all helpful. And this is, I would say, like a really great first start where we at least know the target and who we're going after, and what that looks like is maybe something like this, like we're throwing all the ping pong balls, and we at least kind of know the general direction, but it can be a lot better if you know what I mean. You might have some where, hey, we got close on that, and that's a lot better than if we were rolling them down the other side of the hill or something like that. But there's lots of opportunity for improvement. And a lot of this is because when we're doing segmentation like this, a lot of times we're really focused on the demographics of who these individuals are. And that might be things like age, income, ethnicity, education level, which is all super helpful in telling us a little more about what they are, but not necessarily who they are. And what we're going to spend a lot of time today on is talking about psychographics. So we know demographics, but we're going to get into later, and we'll come to this, is psychographics. But that's really the behaviors, the beliefs, the values, the preferences, giving styles and preferences of those individuals. And the reason we want to focus a lot deeper on that aspect is because, and you may have heard me use this example before, but if we were just looking at demographics, and in our donor base we had King Charles and Ozzy Osbourne, they'd look identical. So we know that our conversations with them would probably be pretty different based on some of the psychographic data. And we're going to dive deeper into that. But just in general, this tends to be where we default to, is just looking at the demographics. But I want to expand your world and show you how much is really out there when it comes to some of that. But that said, before we jump into some of the psychographic data, want to kind of talk about why some of this is important, and especially why first impressions matter a lot. We have some stats here specifically around first impressions, and we're going to talk about how can we create those first time donor experiences that are just like really amazing. Because research shows that first impressions are formed within 7 seconds of meeting someone. You probably have had one of me from when we just started here, and that's impacted how you've heard some of this, I'm sure. And according to Nielsen, 92% of consumers trust recommendations from friends and family over any other type of advertising. And we're going to be talking specifically about some word of mouth opportunities here in a second as well. 73% of consumers say that a good experience is key to influencing their brand loyalties, and 87% of consumers that read online reviews for local businesses and are trusting some of these reviews. So the reason this is important, kind of more so on the donor side, is that over the overall donor retention rate is around 42%. That's not great. That means more than half of our donors do not give again after giving their first gift. New donor retention is only about 14% for first-time donors continuing to give to the following year. Lots of room for improvement there, for sure. And there's lots of ways where we can create personalized donor experiences that can significantly increase the gift amounts and improve those retention numbers. So we're kind of starting from a pretty low bar. So there's lots of opportunities that we're going to discuss here for improvements. And one of those being on the emotional side. Donors who feel emotionally connected to a nonprofit are much more likely to continue giving and increasing their contributions. And one of the ways we can do this is through creating talk triggers. And if you haven't read the book Talk Triggers, I'd suggest, hey, put this on your list for this year to pick this one up. There's a lot of awesome things that come out of this. But essentially, the quick highlights here are really just how can we create these like unexpected but remarkable experiences, something that's unique and memorable for our donors. Whether that's like a personalized thank you video or an like exclusive behind the scenes tour or something like that. There's tons of opportunity here, and I'll give you an example of a talk trigger I experienced, and it was actually one that, if you read the book, is actually in this book as well too. That was captured here, but. A good example of what a talk trigger is my wife and I were staying at a hotel, and it wasn't like a super nice hotel or anything, but we were out by the pool, and they had this little red phone on a pedestal. And if you picked up this phone, you'd immediately hear somebody on the other line say, "Popsicle hotline, how can I help you?" And few minutes later, you'd see someone come out with a little popsicle trolley, come right to where you're laying by the pool, and bring you a popsicle. And that's super memorable and something that's unexpected, and something I've probably now told maybe 100 people or so about. And thinking about, okay, within our organization, do we have a popsicle hotline, or what's our talk trigger? What's our version of that with our donors, to where there's this unexpected experience that kind of wakes them up for a second, and that is just so different they have to tell other people about. Because when we saw the data for some of the word of mouth and trusting friends and family and their recommendations, that's an excellent way to start those conversations. So lots of ways we can do that, whether it's highlighting and sharing compelling stories from our donors, fostering some of those more personal connections, implementing different kinds of recognition programs to honor our donors, or sharing things on social media. But I'd be curious for you all, and we'll go back to these polls again. Does your organization, does your ministry have any talk triggers currently? And it should, if you've scanned this previously, it should pop up. But if not, we have the poll here in the top right as well too, as always. So a fair amount of us are saying yes, or some of us are working on it. Some of us might not have them yet. And that's great. And I'm sure there's some lot of really good examples. So I'm gonna try, and we'll see if this works here. But what talk triggers do you currently have in your organization? And there should be an opportunity here where you could probably, if you can summarize it in like a sentence or a couple of words, I think that'd be super cool to kind of hear and see what everybody has on their end, and we'll probably get some ideas ourselves from this as well. So I'll give a couple minutes here so we have time to do that, and we can always discuss this at the Q&A time at the end as well too, if we don't get a chance to go through all these here. So first time email with a sense of a big celebration in our office. I love that. That's great.
Andrew, can you pop the QR code back up for a second, or would that be too complicated?
So in the top right of the screen
There it is right there. Yep. I got bounced out. Thanks.
Ollie put in the chat that Janet and Chris have fun videos that.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't see the chat while I'm presenting. So if there's anything that comes up, I'll let you chime in.
For all those great ideas. We're all sitting here waiting, excited for the next great idea.
Right. On emails and texting. Yep. Yep. Uh, I think, I mean, one I got that I mentioned last time was we were doing our QCO kind of donation for the year, and um, gave to Phoenix Rescue Mission, and got a call pretty quickly from them with like a thank you, and it was personalized and not something I was expecting, but it was nice, and kind of sharing about, hey, here's where this is going to go, here's how it's going to be used, and the impact that has. That's something that's really cool as well too. Welcome newcomers like their old friends. Yep, everybody wants to feel like they belong. That's awesome. Consistent messaging with how we share. So we got some really great ways that we're already doing this here, which is awesome to see. I got a few ideas for you all if you're kind of some of those who said we're still working on something, or we maybe don't have something yet. Here's just some interesting ones you could do. How about a handwritten thank you? When was the last time you got a handwritten letter in the mail? That's something that would stand out. Takes a little bit of time, but not much. And especially if that comes from staff or even board members or even some of the beneficiaries that you're supporting, that can be really meaningful. I know we have a couple that I still have in my office and on the fridge from those who were impacted by some of the giving, and those are super cool stories to kind of share and mean a lot. Offering a virtual or in-person tours to kind of show, hey, here's what we're doing, and how what you're doing is a part of that. I've been playing around with like the Loom video app where you can share like quick little 1-minute videos that are personalized and customized. Those are pretty fun as well. And they, on the back end, they have some analytics so you can see who's engaged with those and open them and share them and different things like that as well. Recognition featuring donors in different ways. Kind of getting boots on the ground and maybe spending a day on site with you all and what you're doing, participating in a service event or different thing there. Potentially like a storytelling opportunity where it's like a behind the gift series where beneficiaries share stories of how the donation maybe changed their lives in different ways. There's some opportunities on social media and to gamify some of this. Thinking about, okay, when are some unique times to re-engage with our donors? Maybe it's an anniversary check-in or a milestone of you've been supporting us for 5 years or different things like that. But with this, I'd say the more unexpected, the better. Everyone expects to get something end of year and at the different holidays and things like that. But if you can think of something that's really unique with specifically if it ties with your organization, then that can be huge. I mean, one of the things that's a talk trigger that are you all familiar with Chewy? They're like the dog food online company. So one of the things, and you may have heard what they do here, but one of the things that they'll do that's a really big talk trigger for them is that so if you don't know Chewy, they are like an online delivery for your dog food. It's like a monthly subscription or pet toys, different things like that. But we all know our pets unfortunately don't live forever. And the last thing that you're thinking of when your dog or pet passes is I need to go cancel my subscription. So inevitably what ends up happening is you're sad, and on top of that, you get a new fresh bag of dog food at your door one day, and you email them and cancel. And what they do is they immediately refund you. They say, feel free to give that. Here's we can't take the food back, but there's a local shelter here that you can donate it or whatever you want. And then 2 days later, they send flowers. And that's a huge meaningful thing, obviously, if you've ever been in that situation. And guess what? If you've had a dog, you're probably going to have another dog at some point in your life. And I would bet your Chewy's probably on the top of your list for re-upping that subscription after that as well. So those are the kind of type of unexpected things that we're talking about here. There's many other books I'd suggest to look into if that's something that's interesting to you. Unreasonable Hospitality. This is about the Manuel, I forget how to say his last name, Guidara, who essentially built the #1 restaurant in the world, and how he did that, and using some really unique ways of making people feel special there. The gold standard, which is kind of like the principles behind Ritz-Carlton, and Power of Moments, which I'm sure some of you have probably read, but similar to Talk Triggers. But how do we create these moments that really stand out, and these extraordinary experiences for our donors as well? So there's your reading list for the next couple months here, I guess. If you haven't done these already, great ones, and you'll be thinking through the whole time of, oh, here's some fun things we can do. So I said we're going to camp out and spend a lot of time on psychographic data. So let's go ahead and jump in here. When we pull our data, like I said, we have thousands of data points in every household. The reason we pull from so many different sources here is really to get, like I said, beyond the demographic data and into who these people actually are, into the hearts of these individuals. And something that's going to be really important to understand psychographic data a little better is this concept called mosaics. And if you haven't heard of mosaics, that's somewhat by design. This is something that was created a little bit behind closed doors by the credit agencies, actually. And what they've done, whether we like it or not, is taken every household in the US and grouped us all into one of 71 different segments, or mosaic types, if you will. And this is based off of the hundreds of fun things they know about us that we probably wish they didn't. And they use this essentially to put each of us into a box. Now, we all know on this call, we're all individuals, but we're often individuals with a lot of similarity sometimes. So we probably have many different mosaics represented on this call here. But how this is used almost 24/7 in the corporate world is for marketing purposes, of, hey, if I'm, let's see, I got a mailer the other day here from Omaha Steaks. They know I'm their target market or their target mosaic, and that there's a specific way to message and to market to me, and all the mosaic and all the households that are in the same mosaic as me. So we probably got one version of that. So the benefit here is that there's a lot of really rich marketing communication data, so that we can understand how can we best communicate and to reach our current donors and prospective donors. But we kind of see that as one piece of the puzzle. So what we do is we use mosaics as a skeleton or a framework, if you will, and then overlay a lot of really in-depth additional data, from religious beliefs to giving styles and giving preferences, to really creating these super in-depth profiles on who all 71 of these mosaics are as donors. And what this allows us to do is to understand, okay, who are the donors in our organization, and how do we best communicate to them and engage with them, and what are some of the top triggers they like, and what are their giving styles. And often what you see is we might have been saying things one way over here, and everybody we're trying to reach is hearing things and want to hear them over here. So what I wanted to do here is really talk about the top 3 donor mosaics that we typically see engaging in ministries in Arizona. So there's those 71. There's 3 that we see oftentimes with the ministries that we study here in the local area. This is also true relatively nationally, as well. But these are the 3 groups. We have our philanthropic sophisticates, our American royalty, and our sophisticated city dwellers. And before I go too much further here, my caveat is we don't come up with the names. Actually, the UK office of Experian came up with the US names, and the US office of Experian came up with the UK names. So some of them are kind of poking fun at each other, but these are relatively safe ones, we'll say here.
Hey, Andrew.
Yes.
Are these top 3 in Arizona, or were you starting with top 3 sort of across the board?
This is the top 3 that we tend to see in Arizona, but generally when we look nationally as well, these tend to be also the top 3 you see nationally. I might switch out sophisticated city dwellers with another one if we're looking nationally. These anytime we're looking at, especially a faith-based ministry or nonprofit, it's surprising if we don't see one of these in the top Mosaic. So let's talk a little bit about our philanthropic sophisticates. These are generally older, retiree-ish age couples. It's a really unique time in their life right now where they're entering into retirement. And why that's unique for them is that they've had relatively successful careers, but they've especially put a lot of their self-worth and their identity into their careers. And now they're entering a little bit of this crisis of retirement, of not really feeling valued. And it's a huge opportunity for our organizations and our ministries to really engage these individuals and show them the impact that they can have and can continue to have. These make really great mentors, which we'll talk about. They're very well educated, and they're deeply committed to philanthropy, unsurprisingly by the name they have there, regularly contributing to charities and nonprofits, especially if there's a focus on health, education, and sometimes politics, the environment, and the arts as well. They tend to be very denominationally loyal and loyal to the church that they're involved with, and are significant supporters of faith-based nonprofits and community services. This group, I would say, is kind of one of the like core of the church groups. We've studied um, hundreds of churches across the country and looked at hundreds of congregations, and it's very common to see these households make up a good majority of the congregation there. One thing I'll point out, though, that's a little nuanced that you might find with some of your donors is there's this quality that describes them a little bit called morality with minimum sacrifice. And this is not like this is kind of like a reflex for them, if you will, of you will come to them and talk about your organization and the problem, and they're going to say, wow, that's a big deal. Somebody needs to do something about that. They're not going to directly see that they're the ones that can do something about that. They need that extra push, but especially being super clear on the why it's important and the how they can get involved. And once that kind of clicks for them, they realize like, oh yeah, totally. I'm on board 100%. These are, like we said, super loyal donors and individuals. Just they have that initial gut reaction of like, there's a problem. Someone should do something about that, and don't quite make the connection that that's actually them. They're the ones who should do something about that. What you also see with these households is they want to have an impact that's both regional, but also has some global impact as well. They want to do more than just change Phoenix or the local community. They want to hear about how what your organization's doing is having regional impact, national impact, global impact as well. So the more you can share some of those stories is going to be really important to them. Again, the focus on education and improving the quality of life for others is pretty big. They lean towards larger, more well-resourced organizations like they would default to like your Compassion Internationals of the world in some ways. But if you can share the story of how actually their donor dollars are maybe better stewarded and how your organization handling them or how you're tackling a unique need that isn't being met by some of these other larger organizations, that's going to resonate with them as well. We see these households all the time in nonprofit boards, church boards, leadership, different committees, and a big opportunity here for the stage of life that they're in and wanting to connect and mentor the next generation, they would say. So there's beyond some of the donor dollar side of things, there's some opportunities to connect them from a relational standpoint as well here too. From a communication perspective, we have these three different ways that really stand out in these scores here. A score of 100, for example, is average for the typical American. So when we see email with a score of 277, essentially what that tells us is, hey, these households are almost 3 times as receptive to email as the typical American, or they're 44% more receptive to direct mail than the typical American. Digital news, I usually say don't worry too much about in these situations. That's just kind of like advertising on news sites and things like that. But if you're doing radio and you got these households, probably not a good investment. From the social media standpoint, again, a score of 100's average. The one I want to point you here for these households and really for all these mosaics that we're talking about is LinkedIn. Huge untapped opportunity. I would say 90% of the faith-based ministries that we study when we look at the donor base, within the top 3 mosaics we see there's at least 2 that have LinkedIn as their most receptive form of social media. And I would say 90% of the ministries we work with either don't have a LinkedIn presence or not a very good one. So there's lots of opportunity. This is something where I would say, hey, spend some time investing into this a little deeper. All right, our American royalty households. These are fun ones. Very high income, wealthy individuals. These are going to be your business owners, business leaders, doctors, lawyers. They're generally in their $1 million neighborhoods, things like that. But the big thing that I can leave you with these households are we have to show the ROI. We can tell the emotional story all day long, and they'll listen to that and they'll smile and say, "Hey, that's great that you're doing that and that we're supporting that." And then they'll have 3 questions of, have you done this before? Let me see the 990. How's this going to get done? Who's this going to serve? How many wells are going to get dug? And are they going to hear about Jesus in the process? What does that look like? They also need to see a big vision. Vision casting is going to be really important with these households, and they want to be a part of something that's big. The grander that vision is, the more likely they are to help support that. They're going to need a little bit more of the personal touch and personalized emails and direct mail. These are your gala mosaics in some ways, where they kind of want to be invited to those special events and the dinners and those types of things. And part of that, honestly, is some of the networking opportunities that are there for them. Again, they're looking for ROI, not just from the organization, but some of that social ROI as well for themselves. And being able to network with others that are kind of like them is something that they look for as well. So if you've had these dinners before, you may notice there's certain circles that form that look maybe more like a networking event than a dinner or a gala in some ways. Transparency, super important. They're going to want to see the financial reports. They want to see updates on how the donations are being used, and what you're doing there. And then from a leadership perspective, these are really great households to be involved, not just like to get their advice to get their money type thing, but like we see them all the time on boards. They're leaders in their organizations. They've got great connections, and they're great individuals to have on your team as well too. They're going to judge the book by its cover. And what I mean by that is when they visit their website, they're going to immediately associate the quality of the website, the quality of the imagery, and the quality of the videos with the quality of your ministry. Whether that's the truth or not, that's how they're going to see it, and they're going to kind of make a gut level decision. And they're going to do their website. They're going to they're going to do their research, and they're going to go all through your website and look at all the pages and everything they need to see there. Reputation is important to them, and really they want to feel valued, and inviting them to be involved in some of those kind of key stakeholder meetings is a great way to build trust with these donors. They're going to be very interested in the history and the background of your organization, as well as, like we talked about previously, some opportunities to connect with like-minded donors in their socioeconomic class. Now, look at the LinkedIn score here, off the charts, almost 7 times average there, but pretty high scores across the board when it comes to all forms of social media, but especially that LinkedIn one with these households here. If you wanted to know, their coffee of choice is Blue Bottle coffee, and we'll get into how we get into those specifics a little later here, but thought I'd throw that out there. And then finally, we've got our sophisticated city dwellers. These are interesting households, and like these, I kind of say, like the best way to understand these households are these were these are grown-up hippies who are now grandparents, and the church was maybe part of the establishment and the status quo, which this generation rebelled against. But they've always had a high interest in what they would say is spirituality. They're still passionate about various social and political causes, and they tend to gravitate towards churches that behave like nonprofit social services. Um, I would say the faith isn't quite as deep with this Mosaic as we see with our philanthropic sophisticates and different things like that. But what they're going to be really interested in is specifically what are you doing for the community, and what impact is that having, and how can they be a part of that? Um, Direct mail works pretty well for these households, and they're uniquely kind of receptive to 2 annual stewardship campaigns, both in the spring and the fall. But come Christmas time and things like that, they're visiting grandkids, they're traveling, and in the summer they're traveling and different things there. So those don't work too well. These people would say they don't need or want a personal visit, maybe like our American royalty households, but do look forward to that relational side of donating and potentially being able to talk and interact with the leadership at your organization. They tend to decide the amount of their pledge based on the details provided. With this group in particular, you can't give them too much information. The more they give, the more they see that as like a trust aspect, and the more they can trust you. They're going to want to kind of designate a little bit where that giving goes, and that can be tedious sometimes, we know, but the trust aspect is really in the details given, and they're very results driven. And providing updates on the results is important to them, and they need to see a track record of excellent stewardship and minimum waste. And that's something actually in common with all 3 of these mosaics here, but especially with our American royalty households and with these households here as well too. They make great volunteers, but as they're aging now, they start replacing their volunteer hours with donor dollars. So some opportunities to connect with them, whether that's some of the more personalized communication, again, providing really clear, detailed information on how donations are being used and specifically the outcomes of that and some of those updates there, and highlighting those success stories and some of the tangible outcomes of what you're doing, so that they can really put their thumb on, hey, I gave this, this is what happened, and that was because I gave that. They're also going to be interested in some of those events and things like that we discussed as well, and some of the opportunities to engage them from a volunteer perspective there too. Email works really well, almost 2 times average there. Direct mail works also. The tricky thing with these households is video content is very low. So the video content we're putting online, although they are receptive to a lot of social media, they're just not engaging with video as highly. So that's all great and good to kind of talk about these mosaics, but it's not super helpful if you don't know which mosaics are actually in your organization. So what I wanted to do here is just provide an opportunity of, if you wanted to know, hey, what are the top mosaics specifically in my organization? Scan this. We'll put a free report together, and we'll look at who your organization is, and understand based on that who's going to be the mosaic that resonates with you most. And then I'll personally jump on probably like a 30-minute call with you, and we'll walk through the findings of that and some of the implications of that and opportunities for your organization specifically with these households. You're also going to get 30 days of an AI assistant that we'll talk about here in a minute. So that's going to be a cool thing that's included here as well. So I'll leave that there, and we'll come back. There'll be another opportunity to scan this towards the end if you didn't get a chance to fill this out here.
Yeah, so just to clarify, Andrew, oh, sorry, I interrupted there. Just to clarify, people can fill out that form, reach out to you. You guys will do some research and analytics connected on who they are, where they are, their surrounding communities, ultimately identify their top mosaic, and then continue to have discussions about that, including for 30 days, they'll have access to the AI stuff that will help them understand how those people can best be reached. Is that the right summary?
You got it exactly. You'll have your own version of Charlotte, who we saw there earlier and who we might see here in a second as well too.
Awesome.
Intercepting signal, inserting Charlotte.
So sorry to interrupt you. You were doing so great. This is all very interesting. However, if I remember the agenda correctly, I believe we promised the audience insights on how to use AI to boost donor engagement. Might I suggest that we transition to our AI portion of the presentation now? I have an idea to kick us off. Let's talk to our audience here and first learn how familiar they are with AI, then we can share some insights tailored to their knowledge level. Does that sound acceptable? Okay, now back to you all. Carry on.
Awesome. Thanks, Charlotte. So let's see where we land here. How familiar are you with AI technology? Is it very familiar, somewhat familiar, not familiar at all? Going to be opportunities for everybody here. Those responding quickest with the QR code scans are the most familiar with AI, not surprisingly. All right, so looks like we have a pretty familiar group, I'll say. Maybe a third of us are very familiar, 2/3 of us somewhat familiar, and some of us maybe not at all. Well, we're going to dive deeper into all of this here. I put this quote up here from Mark Benioff and why this is important. And what he's saying is today's CEOs are likely the last who will manage a workforce of only human beings. And it is very true. You're seeing this already. And we're going to talk a little more about this here. And the big kind of misconception I'll say with AI is that most people, just based on where we are in the development of it now, are anticipating linear growth of AI. And linear growth would be like kind of what you saw with the internet, like it was this huge revolutionary thing and just keeps going and grows. And that's kind of what this line looks like here, the dotted line. This is where we are right now. So it looks like we're still following that dotted line on this curve here, but really the growth of AI is exponential. And why this is so important is there's going to come a time very soon here where if we're not already engaging and learning about AI, frankly, it will be too late to get caught up. If we were in a coma 30 years ago and woke up today, you could get caught up on what the internet is. That's not going to be the case for AI, and it's going to be something where those who are in the top 10% of the utilization of it are going to seem like hundreds of years ahead of those who maybe picked it up just a couple months later. So that's why it's really important for if you're some of those who would say you weren't very familiar or not familiar at all, to at least start that initial process of the learning on some of this, because it's going to be really important here. Question I get all the time is, will AI replace me in my job? You're not going to be replaced by AI, but you might be replaced by someone who can use AI better than you. A recent study by MIT found that a 40% increase in productivity and performance from employees who used AI versus those that didn't. And some of the studies even showed up to 70% increase. So that's several days a week of additional productivity from somebody who's fully utilizing AI, even just a little bit here. So for those who would say, hey, I've got no idea about AI or any of this, here's your quick tips and tricks to kind of get you started on the shallow end here with ChatGPT. And the first thing, a rule when it comes to ChatGPT is just ask ChatGPT how to use ChatGPT. It's an expert in that. It can help you out as much as you want. The next ones are be specific and give examples. If you're asking it to maybe I don't know, write an email for you, which I would say is really a easy use case of ChatGPT. Give it an example of what you want included in that email, how you want it to sound, the tone, the objective of that email, or even if you have a good email that you've written previously, just give it that and say, hey, do something like this, but in this scenario. And the big one here with Rule 3 is ask for options. I think we get caught up all the time in that we're just so happy that it's done something for us that we don't have to do, that we just accept it and go with it because it's maybe better than what we could have done or save some time there, and that's great. But I'd say next time you do this, just add in the sentence and give me 5 options. And what you're going to see immediately is, yeah, that first option was great, But there's some things from option 2 that I really like a little better, and option 4 that I want to incorporate in there, and that'll give you some other ideas there. Always ask for the source, especially if you're doing facts, to make sure it's not just making something up, because you'll get that occasionally. And get creative and have fun. If you don't already have it, I would really encourage you to download the app and put this on your homepage and start using this instead of Google, just for a couple weeks to get you started. And again, so we're not falling behind in some of the AI opportunities here. So AI for development. One of the things we've done, if what I mentioned is with those mosaics that we just spoke about, there's thousands of pages of information and data points on each of these individual mosaics. So much so that, like, yeah, we can pull out some key insights and some key points that we just saw and reviewed there, but that only gets us a piece of the puzzle. So what we've done is essentially created our own AIs, like you saw Charlotte here, that's fully trained on everything it means to be a specific mosaic. She's an American royalty mosaic, by the way, if you're wondering. Maybe not surprisingly. And what this enables is for you to interact with a perfect kind of replica of your donors, and to essentially have an opportunity to kind of speak with them and interview them on True Serum, and go back and forth, where this AI is trained on all the behaviors and preferences of that mosaic group that represents your donors. And you can test out strategies of, hey, we're about to send this email. What are your thoughts? And, oh, okay, maybe I need to move the story up above those facts, or maybe I need to have a bullet of our accomplishments this quarter first for these households, and kind of get live feedback on some of that, which has been super helpful. And this is what you'll get the 30-day access to as well. It's a really fun tool to play around with, and really looking forward to hearing your guys' use cases on some of this as well. This is important because it's projected by 2030, 80% of the content you engage with is going to be AI generated. And content is, whether for better or for worse, and I've got my own opinions on it, but content's going to continue to shift towards hyper customization and personalization. Everything you engage with will be essentially customized for you. And it's going to become a basic expectation from our donors. You're seeing this already. If I don't know if you've ordered a pizza on the Domino's app recently or not, but you're speaking with an AI who remembers your preferences, and is helping you create that perfect order. And if a pizza shop down the street can do this, how much more important is it for us to be doing this with our donors? And it's going to be something that they expect. One of the ways that you can do this is for even making some of your ChatGPT emails better. So this is just an email that I generated for Choices Pregnancy Center. Went into ChatGPT and said, hey, help me write an email to our donors. And that was all the context I gave it. And it wrote a decent email. I mean, frankly, probably better than I could write. But the reason the mosaic data is so important is because when we have that, and if you're kind of asking the AI, it gets a lot more specific. And here's what that looks like. So instead of the more generic one, now we have something that's really crafted and tailored directly for the behaviors, the preferences of who we're speaking to. And the goal behind this is not to like try to trick somebody into giving or something like that. The goal behind this is to share the story about who we are and what we're already doing to who we're speaking with. So you can kind of see some of the instances where it talks about, okay, honoring the sanctity of life. That's a very specific thing for this mosaic, and empowering women, and different things there. These are like key words that are going to really have a big impact with those who and resonate with those who read it, versus just a generic, hey, ChatGPT, help me with this. The mosaic aspect really helps to get that deeper. We did this for a school recently where they did kind of their like annual report or their view book, and put that into the AI, and got feedback from Charlotte, actually, specifically on our team, who read all of the copy in the view book, looked at the imagery and said, hey, this is great, but seems like a lot of fluff. Give me the actual use cases of how was this done? Give me some case studies of students and the impact that they're having in their careers now and different things like that. And was really able to help craft this to be a lot more custom for their audience. You're more than likely using AI wrong. I used to say AI is like a great intern you can have on your team, but it's advanced to the level now where it really can be a thought partner where we can give it our most difficult and important problems and to have it help us think through those problems together, especially with some of the new opportunities, whether it's with Grok or ChatGPT or DeepSeek on doing deep research, where you can give it a topic and it will go off for maybe 10 minutes or more and research it and provide you a fully complete analysis of kind of that problem you're facing. And that's not just to say we'll take whatever it says and go with it, but it gives you some different perspectives and some ways of thinking about that problem that you might be stuck on. I'd encourage you. This is something fun I've done is create your own personal advisory board, and this can be anybody you want on it. But you can go in and say, "Hey, you're my advisory board," and the board is made up of Warren Buffett, Steve Jobs, Albert Einstein, whoever. Uh, here's a problem I'm facing. Maybe it's in my personal life or something like that. What are each of your thoughts specifically on that? And getting all these different perspectives, and where it's really valuable is like don't pick people who just think like you. Pick people who think differently than you, and getting those different perspectives of what these individuals would, how they would approach those problems or think about these things is an interesting kind of experiment to play with, I'd say. But it can also be your personal team. You essentially have your own administrative assistant who can help with managing your emails, or a data analyst, a grant writer. I'm horrible at that kind of stuff, and any help I can get there is always a big help. And there's lots of different ways where you can use AI to kind of buy back your time in some ways. So there's lots of opportunities there. And then, especially on the development side, it's not just what it can do for you, but also what it can cut out. So whether that's using, and you've probably been in meetings where there's been an AI listening and then provides a summarize some of the notes or meetings. We've had some meetings like you see here in the picture where we put up a bunch of stickies on different things and then just take a picture and have the AI compile all that and summarize some of that for us. Um, Visualizing reports. It's an expert at Excel. I'm not an Excel expert, but it makes me feel like I am with doing its own formulas and everything there and helping to analyze different things. Checking for inconsistencies, maybe in your annual report or drafting different emails and preparing for board questions can be really big of, hey, here's who's on my board. What are some questions that I can expect to receive from them and how can I be prepared? But even especially for some of our donor conversations of, okay, how, if I know that this donor is a philanthropic sophisticate donor and I'm doing my 30-day trial of the Mosaic AI, and I'm getting lunch with this person, and maybe there's going to be an ask at the end of that lunch, I might want to practice that conversation 10 different times. And what I might see is, hey, maybe 8 out of those 10 times I practiced that conversation with the AI, that representative asked me the same 3 questions 8 out of those 10 times. So when I get ready for my lunch, I better be sure that I know those answers to those questions and how to best approach them, and can be prepared for that or some of the objections that they might have, or can bring the right brochure that has the right story or the right data that's needed about the project that we're going to be talking about, and different things there. So you can do this as much as you want. It's unlimited, and there's no downside on testing things out before you kind of go live with it.
Hey, Andrew.
Yes.
Jonathan, can I share a couple things in the chat real quick?
Yeah, of course.
So this was interesting. Bobby said, I asked ChatGPT during this call to research our organization's website and suggest a talk trigger based on our ministry. It gave me 5 great ideas. So that's pretty cool. Carla said we use Coach Chat GPT tailored to our organization and our verbiage and the way that we talk about things. What would be the difference there, Andrew? What's Coach Chat GPT?
Yeah, so depending on what you mean there, maybe it's training the knowledge base. One of the things that we'll do when we put the AI together for you is we're going to ask for specific internal documents about your organization. It'll get everything that's online naturally, but if you have like the mission, vision, values, the annual reports, those types of information, that can really help teach the GPT more about who you are and provide better context in the answers. Even some of your, maybe it's communications from your executive director and how they speak and word things and the verbiage there. That can be super helpful in the knowledge base for context as well.
So it'll work to gather and understand even your personality more as an organization, how you talk about things, and then when you go and use it, things are
exactly.
already sort of more in line with who you are.
It's very natural for most organizations to have a style guide, but what we don't think about is what's our tone guide? How can we ensure that all of our communication and the words we're using and the style that we're using from that standpoint sound like it's coming from the same place? How is that tailored?
Great.
Yeah. Another fun opportunity that you all can probably play with right after this call as well, if you haven't already, is Google's Notebook LM. And what this will do is create a professional podcast in less than 5 minutes. And you can upload your website, like we were just talking about there. You can upload your annual report, videos, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to put in there. I've seen a lot of great results with like, if you're an organization where you have that 60-page annual report and we look and you think that your Mosaic isn't direct mail receptive, put this in there and send them the podcast version of this as well. And this is kind of what this looks like. I took Phoenix Rescue Mission's annual report, popped it in there, and within 3 minutes had this.
All right, let's jump right in, shall we? Today, we're diving deep into the Phoenix Rescue Mission's 2023 annual report. Now, I know what you're thinking. Annual report sounds a bit dry, but trust me on this. This one's different.
Oh, absolutely. It's so much more than just numbers and figures, you know? It's packed with powerful stories that really bring the mission's impact to life.
Yeah, it really does. It's called Don't Forget About Me. And let me tell you, that theme hits hard.
So I won't play the full 50-minute podcast there, but you can kind of get a perspective. You can't, unless you know the voices, you can't really tell it's AI. And how you do this, I'm going to make it super simple for you all, so you can do this afterwards. Is you could just search Notebook LM. It'll take you to a Google site, and literally all you do is you just drag and drop your document into the upload source. And it's going to take you to a page that looks like this. It'll give you a summary. You could even ask it questions about the document and do a bunch of cool things there. But what we're concerned about is the deep dive conversation. And all you do is you hit generate, and it's ready to go. If you want to get more customized, you can hit customize. And this is kind of like your opportunity to like hand them a sticky note with like a few instructions on it of, hey, create a summary of this for our donors, and maybe the secret mission is to encourage them to give more next year or something like that. So that's your opportunity to add a little context there.
Hey, Andrew. Chris has got a great question, and maybe you can talk a little bit too about the differences between the free version of ChatGPT and the paid version. But Chris is asking, does the free version of ChatGPT still only have the internet through 2021? I didn't even realize that if that's accurate. Do you know anything about that?
That's a good question. I think it's been updated slightly since then, but I don't think it's fully live to today. And frankly, I would say I think it's $20 a month for the plus. Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong there, but it's well worth your money. You'll save hours of time a week using it, and some of the abilities to get some of the new content, like the deep research ability and the latest models. Try it for a month. I would say, I'm not trying to sell you on like ChatGPT or anything here. Try it for a month and should be up to date. If not, if you don't want to do that yet, I think Grok, the Elon Musk's one, I think that one should be fully live, up to date, as far as its internet searching
And
ability.
that's called Grok, right?
GROK.
Yeah. Yeah, the paid version of ChatGPT, ChatGPT Plus, is about $22 a month.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be more robust for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a $200 version. I'd say you probably don't need that, but it's well worth at least trying it for a month and seeing if you get some benefit there. Or honestly, Grok, I have is advanced a lot in the last couple of months, and I'd say maybe is even right now a stronger alternative to GPT as well too, if you're comparing the free versions at least.
Sure. And then Carl is wondering, is this platform that you have up right now, the notebook platform, is there a free version of that, or is that only a paid version?
Completely free. I think you just need like an email login,
Okay.
excuse me, or something like that. But this is all free. You can all do this afternoon. I gave it Apple's terms and conditions, like the 500 pages nobody reads, and it came up with a pretty funny podcast on that. That was entertaining. That was my stress test of it there.
Well,
Andrew, one more question. Chris asks, why do you think ChatGPT is the best option? Or are you even saying that, given you having your own?
I think it is the most accessible option. We're kind of in an arms race right now. So every week, my answer kind of changes, and a lot of it depends what you're using it for. But choose one, I would say, to kind of learn and understand, and usually that's the most accessible one. And you'll be in good shape. Personally, if you're asking me personally, I I use I'm probably 50-50 with Grok and ChatGPT right now and what I'm using it for.
great.
All right,
Well,
let's
yeah, Andrew, you want to take us home here, and then again,
Yeah.
we'll stay on for a few more minutes and answer any other questions that you might have. But yeah,
Yeah,
back
so
to
we
you, Andrew.
can
Thanks.
I'll show you this real quick example and then we jump to some questions here. And this is a website that we put into the AI for a school, and you can kind of see they're doing a campaign. They've got some calls to action and some copy on there. And what this looks like for each mosaic might be completely different. And this is the importance of why we want to understand who do you actually have and who are you actually reaching? Because the original campaign here is great and sounds good, but if we're all American royalty, we really want to focus on something that looks like this. Or if we're philanthropic sophisticates, it might look like this, and vice versa with the copy. I won't go through all this with you guys. It'll be in the notes here. But there's going to be really main things that are important to those specific individuals and what they resonate with. So I'll let Charlotte close us out here and we'll do some questions.
Thank you all for joining us today and exploring the powerful intersection of data, psychographics, and AI in transforming donor engagement. As we've seen, understanding your donors isn't just about knowing who they are. It's about understanding why they give and how you can inspire them to contribute even more meaningfully to your mission. Now, I may be just an AI, but even I can see the immense potential when you combine human ingenuity with these tools. After all, algorithms don't make miracles, you do. But they do make miracles a lot more efficient, don't they? Before we transition to taking questions, I want to remind you that you can access a free, personalized donor mosaic report and discover who your top donor personas really are. Plus, we've compiled all the resources we discussed today and this session's slide deck for your convenience. Simply scan the QR code to unlock these insights, sign up for your free report, and take the first step toward revolutionizing your advancement strategy. Now let's open it up to your questions. You'll have the chance to pick the brains of both myself and my brilliant human team. Don't hold back. We're ready to engage, inform, and maybe even surprise you. Let's dive in together, shall we?